Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Barely Bookish podcast. Today, we are going to be continuing on with Wuthering Heights, and I'm once again joined by Jen
Hi.
from In Her Good Books. I forgot that part.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I always forget that part as well.
It's like whenever someone's like, "Oh, tell us a little about your podcast," and you're like,
It's called In Her Good Books. What else do you...
I don't know.
No, usually people say, she has a podcast, and I say, shut up, don't tell people that. I'm like, it's fine. I do, but
listen, but also...
but also tell everyone to listen to it, okay? But don't tell me that you're listening to it.
Yeah. I remember I was in a group on Facebook, and I was like, hey, I was trying to find like a good like monster classic. I was like, what's the vibe? What's everybody reading? Like, what should I read next? And I like just off the cuff mentioned that I was like, oh yeah, I have a podcast. Like, I just want something really good to talk about. And someone in the comments was like, oh, what's your podcast? And I try not to like do that like self promo-y thing. And I was like, oh, whatever they asked. So I was like, oh, it's called Barely Bookish. And she goes, oh my God, like I love your podcast.
That's so funny.
I was like,
oh my God, I'm famous.
I was like, and I like sprinted over to my boyfriend. I was like, someone listens.
Yeah.
Someone's into it.
Even just one person, you met them in the wild.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, this person could have totally been lying and just pretend they were like into my podcast. But
Doesn't matter.
I don't care. Doesn't matter. I want to like frame that,
Yes.
Ugh.
Oh, I get it.
Been riding that high for 3 years.
I would also. We're always like, hello, if anyone's out there, please message us. Mm-hmm. Please comment on anything. We know you're listening. We see you. Mm-hmm. Tell us, please.
Yeah, literally. I'm like, just like maybe say something. I don't know. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like.
Yeah, if you hate it, I also want to hear that. Just because, I mean, don't be mean, but,
I accept criticism. However, someone did say that like my podcast was like unintelligible once, and I was like, it's not though. Like I don't know what to tell you.
We are speaking English.
Yeah.
Out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
And I have an auditory issue, so I was like, okay, like I was listening to it back, and I was like, because they said something, they're like, oh, if you have any sort of auditory problems, you can't even listen to this podcast. And I was like, me, like I listened to it, I edit it. I'm like, what are we talking about here? I don't understand.
So weird. I started listening to our first one that you put out, and no, I thought we were great.
Yeah,
we're adorable. We're hilarious.
Literally,
I could understand everything. Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like sometimes people just like to like put negative comments out there. But yeah, whatever. Like someone commented when we were talking about the what's it called? The Interview with a Vampire, the new TV show that came out. Oh, yeah. My guest on there was talking about like musical scale, and they mentioned, I think it was like, I don't know musical scale, so bear that in mind, but I think they said it's like C flat or something, and then someone commented and said, your guest like doesn't know what they're talking about. There's no such thing as C flat.
Okay.
What? Google says you're wrong.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God, that just reminded me of the one time, I mean, not the one time we got a comment, but one time I said an author's name wrong. Like, it just came out of my mouth wrong. And I said, it was supposed to be Clay McLeod. And I said Clay McClay. And then I was like, Clay McLeod. I'm like, why did I just say Clay McClay? And then Clay McLeod commented on the post, haha, Clay McClay. And I was like, oh my God. This is humiliating. Not only did I not give him a great review on this book, but he also heard that and is telling everyone, okay, cool.
I
That's
lose it.
terrible.
I always love when an author comments on one of my things though, like when I'm like like my Instagram does not do great. Like I do a lot better on TikTok. Probably
Hmm.
because I do need to post videos on Instagram. I just am a little lazy with Instagram. So, like my Instagram post I just made has like 2 likes, which
Yeah,
is whatever. Like I
Instagram,
don't care.
it's the worst.
Yeah. So, I tagged Vanessa Len. Len? I was like not sure about that one. Um the author of Only a Monster,
Okay.
and she commented, and I was like raving about how obsessed I was with the book, and then she was like, "Thank you," and I was like,
Ah, I'm famous.
"Hello."
Yeah, I love it. I love that too.
Yeah, I always love it when authors comment on my stuff, especially because it's like my Instagram's like boo boo, but I'm like, "Hello, thank you."
Yes.
Okay, let's get into Wuthering Heights and the drama filled moment we're about to have.
Let's do it.
Okay. Honestly, every time I read this book, I'm like, I should really put on Vanderpump Rules. You know, like,
Yes.
it's like okay, so we are on chapter 21. So, um, Catherine woke up the next morning, all upset that Linton's no longer there. I'm just realizing from the start of this episode to the end of this episode how much time elapses. So that'll be fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's a couple of years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because by the end of where we're gonna end this episode, Kathy is 17.
Hmm.
And I think at this point she's like 12,
Maybe.
11, 12.
Yeah.
So Heathcliff does not like his son, and Linton is constantly ill.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure we talked about this when we first kind of met him, probably in the last
Mhm.
episode, that to me he was the boy from The Secret Garden.
Still haven't read that yet, though.
Yes. Right. Yeah, that is what you said.
Yeah, I
Uh,
got it. It's
yeah.
literally somewhere. I got a really nice copy of it, actually.
I haven't read the book either, but I was obsessed with the movie when I was a kid.
Oh,
And
it's right there. I found
he
it.
was he was just, oh yeah. I can see it.
It's like
Ish.
it's under Gone with the Wind,
Oh
right there.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, just a sickly boy in bed all the time. Can't move. It's just like ah, ah,
honestly, mood.
ah. Yeah.
Linton
Yeah.
knew about rot days before the rest of us did, honestly.
Yes, he really did.
Um, Linton is equally as hidden away as Catherine is, which I think is very funny to me because it's like they're doing the same kind of parenting, except like it's the same but completely opposite, which doesn't make sense. But like
But it does.
they're like coddled, and one is coddled with love and one is coddled with hatred.
Yes. Just as you would expect from Heathcliff.
Literally. A very yin and yang moment.
Yeah.
So Catherine uh ends up luring. Okay. Years have passed. Sorry. Catherine then begins to start luring Mrs. Dean all the way out into their land until they run the Heathcliff on his. And then Heathcliff's like, hey, why don't you come over? You haven't seen your cousin in years. And then Kathy's like, oh my god, my cousin lives here? Like, it's been like 4 years at this point, 5 years. And Kathy's like, oh, we're going. And Ellen's like,
Uh,
no.
yeah, she's like, Nellie, you silly goose. I can't believe you didn't tell me my cousin lived just next door this whole time.
Literally.
Mm.
Like, can you imagine your like childhood bestie actually being your neighbor?
Right.
And then you're like, oh, I thought you like moved countries.
Yeah. Nope, just 4 miles down the road.
Yeah. Literally walking distance.
Yeah. She's like, "Do you think Daddy knows?" Yes. Yes, he
Yeah.
does.
Yes, he does. And then Heathcliff ends up revealing to Ellen, he's like, yeah, my entire plan here is that the two of them fall in love, and then Linton dies, which, look at him. And then I get Thornfield. And Ellen's like, no.
Right. But then he says all this is like this little villain monologue he
Mm-hmm.
has. And she's just like, "Oh, okay." And then she goes back and she doesn't like mention it to anyone like,
No.
"Hey, this is his plan." She just keeps it
Yeah.
to herself and is like, "Oh, well, I guess we'll see how this turns out."
I love that, like, Ellen cares, but, like, mostly for the drama,
Yes, she just
you know?
stirs the pot. She really does, love Kathy, but
Mm-hmm.
also she loves some excitement because she's bored up there.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm imagining her just sipping wine with her gal pals and then just be like, and then I just went back home. I mean, what was I to do? Was I to reveal the villain arc? No. I was just gonna
No,
see what happened. What
I'm,
happened?
I'm
Like,
just a servant.
yeah, you know. So Linton and Kathy see each other. They're both immediately excited and like super happy. Um, Catherine's like, we should go every day. And Ellen's like, no.
No, that will not be allowed.
Yeah. So she's like, why don't we bring my dad over here? And Ellen's like, absolutely not. We're not doing that.
No, no.
So then Heathcliff's like, let's keep this visit a secret. Your dad won't let you come back. And Kathy's like, I don't know about that. Like,
Yeah.
she's not very good at lying, we've noticed.
Well, no, not at all. And she isn't. She goes. I think she tries to keep it to herself for like a minute when she gets home,
Yeah.
and then she's just like, "Ah, guess what happened?" I'm
They
like,
like sit down to dinner and she gives him like 5 seconds to like sit in his chair, like get comfortable. And she's like, so today.
"Yep, I met Mr. Heathcliff, and I know my cousin is there, and he said he doesn't like you, but." I was like, "Oh my gosh, come on."
So the next day, um, wait. Oh, sorry. This is before they leave. Linton says, uh, Kathy's like, why don't you just come and hang out with me? And Linton's like, if I walked over to you, I would literally die, which
Yeah,
is rude.
yes, yeah. She suggests he could come to her house. No,
No.
it would kill him.
Yeah. Have you ever had like that friend that only comes to your house and you're like, why don't we go hang out with you? And then like you find out years later, you're like, oh, I get it. I
Yeah,
do.
there's reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Heathcliff ends up sending uh Kathy outside to like go hang out with Linton. Linton's like, I'm not gonna go. So then he sends Kathy and Harrington outside and he's like revealing even more of his like dark subplot to Ellen. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm really glad I made Harrington suffer the same way I did, but he still loves me, so that's pretty cool." Like, oh,
Yeah, and he prefers Hareton to Linton,
yeah,
but not enough to
yeah,
be good.
literally. So then Linton, after getting like mildly jealous, decides to go join Harrington and Kathy outside, and then they start making Kathy and Linton end up making fun of Harrington for not being able to read.
This is so rude.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Ugh.
So after all of that fiasco, they're able to finally get away, and Ellen tries to warn Kathy away, and Ellen just says that Mrs. Dean is prejudiced, so her opinion doesn't matter.
uh, well, Wrong? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, like, I guess, but also, so yeah, it was the next morning. Kathleen immediately spills the beans because I think her dad was already in bed, so like she got away with it for like maybe 8 hours.
Yeah.
Um, so then her dad's like, "You should not go over there. He looks awful." And he does like such a terrible job that Kathy's like, "No, we should just go hang out with them all the time. Like, we should have a family dinner."
It's the absolute last thing he would ever want to do.
Literally. Like, she's uh already inviting him, basically. And he's like, No, let's not do that. So he's like, You cannot see them anymore. Like, we're not doing this. This is a terrible idea. And then that night, Ellen finds Kathy crying in bed. And she's like, I'm sad because I feel like I'm disappointing Linton because I'm not allowed to go over there anymore. And then she's like, Can I write a note to him? And Ellen's like, No. Cold turkey. No.
No. Although I think it would have been nice to write him a note being like, hey, I can't see you. Please don't wait for me.
Yeah.
You know. I would also be upset if I thought someone was waiting for me and I
Yeah.
just wasn't coming because I mean, you might not believe it, but I don't like being late.
No, that's a mood.
But I mean, I've been late to record with you multiple times, but I don't like it. And I send you a note first.
It's fine. I mean, I literally, the only reason I'm ever early is because I tell myself that, like, I'm actually recording at 8:45.
That's a good idea. Me, I'm like, okay, time to set up. Hi, do I even have my microphone? God.
Honestly, I just, like, don't leave my office. Like, I usually end up eating. And then there's been multiple times where I've finished the reading 5 minutes before the recording.
Yeah.
So,
Perfect.
like, there was one day I was, like, legitimately like, I'm gonna have to tell you that we can only do, like, this number of chapters because,
Yeah.
like,
I just
and then
can't do it.
I think you were running late. And I was like, perfect. And then I like finished the recording, finished the reading. I was like, excellent.
Yeah, did it.
Yeah. I was like, it works out, it evens out. And like tonight, I actually had to get some work done before we could even record. So
Perfect.
yeah, it all works out.
Yeah.
Um, so they like Mrs. Dean and Kathy fight. And then Mrs. Dean's like, and then I left without even giving her a kiss on her head. So,
That
but
shows
then I
her.
felt bad about it. And I went back in, and she was writing a letter.
Of course she was.
Yeah. And then she's like, and I told her no one in this house will deliver a letter for her. Turns out she paid the milk boy to deliver the letter. So this goes on for like a couple months, it seems, where they're secretly passing letters back and forth via the milk boy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mrs. Dean like sees her being real suspicious, and she sneaks over, finds this like drawer that Kathy's been hiding all of her notes in, grabs all of the letters, reads every single one of them. She's like, "Oh, they're like love letters now." And then she keeps them all in her like little in a little bundle until the next day when Kathy goes to like look at them again, and she goes, "Oh my god, where are they?"
Yeah. And then her dad's like, what's wrong, dear?
Yeah,
And she's like, ah.
yeah, and like
That's
runs
pretty
out of the
much
room.
it. Yeah.
And then she says to Mrs. Dean that she can burn them as long as she does not tell her father. And Mrs. Dean's like, and you never speak to him again, right?
And then she's like, but can I just keep like two? She's like,
Mrs. Dean's like,
no.
no.
No, none.
So then they end up burning every single one of the letters. Kathy's freaking out. And then she slips up and tells Ellen that she loves Dean, or not Dean, she loves Linton. And I'm like, oh, that's your cousin.
Yep. Yes.
Not even
Uh,
cousin by distance, like
Yep.
literal cousin.
Yep. Actual like first cousin. And
Yep.
this was what 1847 I think it was written. I don't
Hmm.
know if that's a cousin marrying time.
I don't know.
I'm not sure, but it's not anymore.
Yeah. I'm like,
And
oh
it shouldn't have
god.
been then. That's a little too
Yeah.
close.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when that is literally your only neighbor, but also ew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like maybe go into town for the season or something, like a
Yeah.
normal
Just
person does.
just at least sometimes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So now we are on to chapter 22. It's winter. Edgar's been sick literally the entire season. So Edgar's definitely getting worse. And it's like heavily implying that like his time is coming to an end.
Yeah. And he's pretty young. But I guess everyone else is dying, so
Yeah.
but
You know, it's a Bronte novel. Nobody can live past 30.
oh yeah, I thought or maybe it's coming up, but Mrs. Dean was like, "Oh, you think this is bad? What if me and your dad died? That's way worse."
Mm-hmm.
And then
I think it
she's
already happened, to be
okay,
honest.
yeah, and uh then Kathy gets all like paranoid about it. She's like, I just keep thinking about what if you guys die? What will happen to me? And she's like, oh, it's fine. Your dad is young.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Long
strong. Nothing's
life.
gonna happen to us.
They say. Then the car crashes, you know.
Yeah.
So this is the moment where she's crying because she's like, my dad could die. You
Mm.
could die. Everybody's gonna die. And Ellen's like, it's you're literally fine. Everything's fine. Like, chill out. On this walk, they end up getting to the road, and Kathy just hops the fence. And then she's like, all right, Ellen, time for you to unlock it. And I'm like, come back the same way you came. Like, what are we why? Why would you assume she can unlock it? And then Kathy's like, I guess I'll wait here and you can run to the house then.
Such a brat.
Yeah. And then Heathcliff rolls up, and now Ellen's freaking out because she's like, oh, why? Why? No, no. And he's like, Linton is dying because you won't hang out with him.
So they have no choice but to go to
Yeah.
the Heights. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so Kathy's like, we can't let him die. And Ellen's like, let him die. And Heathcliff's like, if it makes you feel better, I'll be gone for a week. So go over, hang out with my son, and then I won't bother you.
Yeah, that's not
So
what Nellie wants to hear.
no. She's like, absolutely, absolutely not. We're not going over there. And Catherine's like, yeah, we are. We're already going. Look at us walking there. So it's next. We're on to chapter 23. It's the next day. Heathcliff is in fact actually gone. Linton's sick and in bed, and Harrington and Joseph will not light his fire, which I think is really funny.
I also liked it.
They're just like Linton's like, I'm so chilled, and they're like, get a blanket.
Yeah. I need to I'll try to remember to send you a clip from the Secret Garden so you can see this
Yeah.
kid that I'm talking about. It's
I need
perfect.
to read it so bad, and I just haven't done it yet.
Maybe you should.
I know. I need someone to be a guest.
I mean, I could.
I mean,
I do want to read it.
I'm down if you're
All right.
down. You
Yep.
can do it. I already own it. It's
Yep.
literally right there.
It gives me an excuse to actually do it.
Yeah. And then
Yep.
we gotta watch the movie. We do have to
Yes.
watch the movie for this, too.
Yes. Yes.
Well, we'll have to figure out which one we're gonna watch because I think there's multiple.
I think so, yeah. To find either the best or the worst.
that my favorite is to do both the best and the worst. So if you
Yeah.
want to do that, I am down. I
Okay.
feel like
Well,
you got to start with the worst though,
yeah. Yeah.
and like
Agreed.
finish it off nicely.
Yeah.
So, um, couldn't read my own handwriting there for a second. Kathy says she wishes Linton were her brother so he could live with her and her dad. And Linton's like, I'd rather be your husband though.
So awkward.
Like,
What a weird
Kathy's
thing.
like, here's the friend zone, and this is where you live now. And Linton's like, no.
From his sick bed.
Yeah. He's like, I'm free on Tuesday if you want to get married.
Why not?
Yeah. I just don't drag my bed there.
He definitely cannot walk to the wedding.
Yeah. He's
It would
like,
kill
bring
him.
the priest to my bedside. We'll get
As
married
he's,
right here.
and then I'll pass away, and then the priest is already here
Mm-hmm.
to do the rites.
Yep. Like, it's so dramatic and it's kind of hilarious.
Yep.
So, we're getting like a little montage moment of this day. Linton and Kathleen end up fighting over whose dad's a liar. So there's that.
Probably
So,
both, really.
yeah, literally.
Mostly Heathcliff, but I mean, probably both.
Probably both. So, Kathy ends up shoving him, and he has like a coughing fit very dramatically on the floor. And then he's like, "You could have killed me." And she's like, "I wouldn't have even fallen being shoved as hard as I shoved you. Like, I did not shove you that hard. Like, I'm
No.
imagining you like tap someone. You know, like when people play soccer,
Yep.
you know, and
Yeah.
they're like rolling on the ground, and you like see the zoomed in clip, and they didn't even touch each other.
Is this the part where he started coughing up blood?
No, that's
That's
in a
later.
minute. Yeah, it's later.
Okay. Because then that happened, and I was like, "Oh, what?"
Yeah.
He's actually sick. I was like, "Sorry."
I know. I can't tell. And then, like Catherine, I was like, "Oh, she's making it up," and then she died.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Like, are you just being dramatic, or are you actually sick? Like, how are you supposed to tell the difference in
I know.
this world?
But then he like notably fakes a seizure when Kathy's like, "All right, I'm gonna leave then," and then like gets to the door and he screams and then like seizes on the floor.
Oh my gosh.
And Kathy's like, "We can't leave now," and Ellen's like, "We gotta go. Like this is
Yeah,
ridiculous. We
this
gotta leave."
is. Yeah, no, she's not falling for it.
Yeah. And she like tries to put a pillow under his head and he goes, "No, it's too high." Or too low, and then she puts a second pillow. She goes, "It's too high." She like she moves his head, and he like puts it in her lap, and he's like, "Perfect. You cannot leave."
Oh my gosh, so funny.
Yeah. And then he's like, "You cuddling me makes me feel better," and she's like, "Oh, this is so sweet." And Ellen's like, "Oh my god, we gotta go."
Oh my
Like,
god, barf. These
and like the
teenage
way
cousins.
he keeps trying to send Ellen out of the room so he could probably like make out with his cousin.
Yeah.
And Ellen's like, "I'm literally not gonna leave." Like,
No.
nice try, but no.
No.
So, they like finally are able to leave, and Lyndon's like, "I'll see you tomorrow, right?" And Ellen's like, "We are not coming back. This is a one-time situation." And then like Kathy whispers something to him, and I'm like, "Oh, she's sneaking out. She's coming back."
Oh, of course. And Mrs. Dean sees it,
Yeah,
but she's kind of like, eh.
whatever. Popcorn's already brewing back home, you know? She's
Yeah.
like ready to roll.
Yes.
So Mrs. Jean ends up getting sick, and she's in bed for 3 weeks, starting the following day. And turns out, every single night, she snuck out to go see Linton. So there's that.
Yep, she did.
And then we're on to chapter 24. So after the 3-week period, Ellen finally feels like good enough that she's like, okay, let's hang out tonight. And Kathy's like, great, sure.
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty tired.
Yeah, pretty worn. Like, she's like, hey, Kathy, I can't really like read right now. Like, why don't you read me something? And Kathy's like, okay, and like starts like reading really fast and keeps checking her clock and like yawning. And she's like, I think I'm gonna go to bed. She's like, are you sure you're not like? And then she's like, aren't you tired? Like, aren't you wanting to go to bed right now? And Mrs. Dean's like, I'm doing good. I'm fine. She's like, well, I guess I'll go to bed then. I'm gonna go to bed. So after
Yeah,
the third night of this occurring, Mrs. Dean's suspicious.
as
She's
she
like,
should be.
literally. So, uh, she's like, you know what? I'm gonna go check on her. And she goes upstairs,
She's
not to be
gone.
seen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
she's
not
gone.
there. Of
So she
course.
checks, yeah, she checks the whole house. She even like listens at Edgar's bedroom. Nowhere to be found. So she does the obvious thing and just like sits at her windowsill and waits in the dark. So she comes back in the middle of the night, um, aka 8 p.m.
Yes.
Or no, she left at 8 p.m. She's been
Oh,
leaving
yeah.
at 8 p.m. So she comes back like middle of the night actually. Um, and she like Kathy sneaks all the way back into the house, like thinks she gets away with it, sneaks up to the bedroom, um, takes off her shoe and everything, and turns around and Ellen's like, so like very like teenage movie, turns the light switch on. She's like, where have you been?
Yes. It's perfect.
So good. Perfect moment. And she goes, oh, out. And then she's like, I saw your horse. Where have you been?
There's nowhere to go except for
Yeah,
one place.
literally. And then she's like, and Ellen's like, I may have been born at night, but I wasn't born last night. Where have you been?
Yes.
So she's like, don't lie to me. It's rude and annoying. So she's like, oh, I just visited Linton every night for the last 3 weeks, unsupervised with no one around in his bedroom.
Because they're so in love.
Yeah. Um, and so she's like, what? You have to tell me everything. So the Kathy like takes no hesitation. She's like, oh, the beans spilled. So she's like, yeah. So like one night I decided to bully Harrington for not being able to read. I think Harrington likes her, but I'm pretty sure we already know that they're married by now. So
Yeah, I
I think
think
they told us that at the beginning of the book.
so. I was trying to remember that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely likes her, and she's not nice to him.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I mean,
Mm-mm.
Catherine wasn't nice to Heathcliff either,
No.
so and then Harrington says that they need to like Harrington's like annoyed that Kathy's been bullying him this entire time. He's like, when you guys come over, go to Linton's room. I don't want to see you guys. You're so annoying. Like I'm assuming they're just like staring into each other's eyes the whole time too. And
Yeah.
Linton's like, go away, out of
Yes.
my
Yeah.
sight.
Yeah.
So this is the point where one of the nights they're over, somehow Linton and Harrington get into it, and then Linton coughs up blood. Kathy flees, becoming like convinced that Harrington must have killed Linton.
Mm-hmm.
And like Harrington meets up with her on like the road back, and he's uh, like, like does kind of implies that he likes her. She's like, ew.
Ew, you just
And
killed my boyfriend.
Yeah, she's like, the love of
No.
my life and my cousin, you slaughtered him in front of my eyes. I watched him cough up blood. Like, what? This is not the time. This is not the moment.
No, 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 no.
So the next day, Kathy's like, I don't know if I want to go back and like face the fact that like he's probably dead, but I probably should go back anyways.
You probably just want to like find out at least.
She's fully convinced herself that he is dead at this
Yeah.
point.
But if he's not dead, he's gonna be really mad that she just abandoned him.
Yeah. So she ends up going back, and Heathcliff is like, you caused this. And Kathy's like, I literally didn't do anything. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, you made Harrington mad.
It's like
And she's,
mad enough
no.
to beat up a sickly boy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems
I don't know about that. So she ends up like going over it and being like, listen, this is the last time I'm coming over. Like, we can't seem to get along. It seems that I'm specifically making you angry at this point. I'm gonna go. And he's like, oh no, but I love you. And she's like, what? Crazy. Immediately forgives him of everything.
Of course.
Yeah. She's just like, oh, he just gets like angry sometimes. Like, have you ever like listened to a girl like describe their abusive boyfriend?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like,
Mm,
girl, like he does not love you. What are you?
no. No. Go home. Just
Yeah,
go.
go. Anybody else?
Yes.
Like you're scraping the bottom. You know?
Just go into town. Just do it.
Literally. Like how far off is London from the moors? I don't know.
I really think that they should have just gone and lived there anyways after
Mhm.
Catherine died. Like,
Yeah.
get her out of there.
Literally. Gone and stayed with Isabella.
Mm-hmm.
Hung out with her for a minute.
Maybe she'd still be alive. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Literally. Introduced her to town. She didn't have to marry her cousin.
Yep.
So after divulging everything that happened, Kathy's like, don't tell him, don't tell my dad, please. And Ellen's like, I'll think it over. And Kathy's like, okay, and then goes to bed. And then Ellen like leaves her room and immediately walks right into Edgar's room.
Of course. Can't trust her.
No. So, tells him everything. The next day, Edgar's like, okay, as a compromise, Linton can come here. She's not going over there. And Ellen's like, that's not gonna go over well.
No, not at all.
And then we are on to chapter 25. So then we got ripped into modern day for like a second. And we find out all of this happened literally last year.
Yeah. We're coming up to the end.
Yeah. So then we find out that Mr. Lockwood has a picture of Ellen hanging had Ellen hang a picture of Catherine in his room.
Isn't that so weird?
So weird.
It's like, what the heck?
It's like, oh yeah, I just think my neighbor's hot. Like, and I took this creepy photo of her. And I'm just gonna put it right here. Like, don't mind me.
Yeah, no.
And then he literally tells Ellen, he's like, oh yeah, I just think she's hot. Like, he's not
hiding it.
Yeah.
Not
He's
that there's
like,
anything to hide. Like
literally. Like, he's like, I know she's not gonna be into me. Seeing as I showed up 2 minutes ago. However,
do you think she could love me?
yeah, maybe. Like, what is love? You know?
So weird.
So weird. So then we're on to chapter 25. Oh, sorry, I already did that. Then we get thrown back into the past. We find out Edgar is ready to die. He's like, I want to be with my wife. I'm over it. I'm done.
Ugh, people just be
And,
dying.
yeah. Like, I feel like in this book, people are just like, I'm gonna schedule my death for next Tuesday, 4:45.
Yeah. Does
You
that
know?
work for everybody here?
Yeah. Are we all cool with that? Okay, I'm just that morning I'm gonna say that I'm gonna die today, and then that'll really set it in stone for
Yeah.
us. So Edgar's like, hey, Lyndon, just come over. Just come over. Come hang out. So Heathcliff will not let him come over. He's like, if he goes over there, he's gonna die. So she's gotta come over here. And Lyndon's like, why don't we just like meet in the middle? In the
Oh
woods.
yeah.
And so then we also find out the way we end this sentence, this chapter is Mrs. Dean revealing that apparently Heathcliff got even harder on Linton to marry Kathy because he knew Linton was going to die pretty soon.
Yeah, he's got to get it done. But
Yeah.
they go to meet him halfway,
Mhm.
and he's like 5 feet away from the house. Like he did not meet
Yeah.
them at all.
No. No.
And he's like laying on the ground right outside Wuthering Heights.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So that is all we have for today. And I can tell this next recording is going to be very juicy.
Yeah. We're going to get into it.
So, where can all the people of the internet find you and your podcast?
So we are in her Good Books podcast, and you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. And we are in her Good Books podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Yeah, definitely go check out your guys' podcast. And we will catch you all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.